So in Luke 10:38, so this is such a precious passage, and I hope it is so dear to us all, because it's so centered on us spending time with Him, us listening to Him. Yeah, in America, a lot of Christians and pastors have said that Christianity is not a religion, but it's a relationship. And there is a true aspect to that, though it's not entirely true, because you can say Christianity is a religion, but the point is, relationship is so foundational. So when we first become Christians, our eyes are open, and our eyes are open to God, and a relationship starts. You know, it's just like when we can hear about somebody, like for example us. We heard about each other, but then we meet and we start a relationship. That's the same with God. We hear about God, but then when we meet God, a relationship starts. And the Christian life is a continual relationship with God. So each person here, you can ask the question, you personally can ask the question, do I have a relationship with God? Yeah, it doesn't matter if your parents are Christians, or if your pastors are Christian, or the person next to you is a Christian. The question is, do I have a personal relationship with God, with Jesus? So this passage is a pretty well-known passage because it's so precious to true Christians. So here we see in 38, now it happened as they went that Jesus entered a certain village, and a certain woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. Now, as we know, Jesus traveled around with his disciples, the 12 disciples, and sometimes, so Jesus would have had different houses where he stayed. Like, for example, so we know, when Jesus calls his disciples, like one time he said, the foxes have holes, the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. So that meant that Jesus traveled around. He didn't have like this, I have my house where I stay, he didn't have that. So here we see he comes to Martha's house to stay for a little bit. So here he goes into this village where Martha has her place, and she welcomes Jesus and his disciples into her house. And we see she had a sister called Mary or Maria, and who also sat at the Lord's feet, listening to his word. Now, I don't know the African culture, but in this first century culture, rabbis don't have women disciples. So one of the radical things about Jesus is he didn't go by the culture of his time. So a woman disciple sitting at Jesus' feet was a very radically different, almost strange thing. Now, normally, just like today's culture, women would be the ones that prepare food in the kitchen and, the household things, and there is a biblical aspect to that. So here at verse 40, Martha, so there's Maria who's doing what she's doing. She's sitting at Jesus' feet, listening to his teaching, and you have Martha who's distracted. She's busy with much serving, probably preparing things in the kitchen. So I know in the Middle East and probably Africa and many cultures, when you invite a person to your house, many times you clean your house, before, and then especially the ladies, they work in the kitchen to prepare food for your guest. That's pretty normal. So Martha is doing the normal thing, especially as a woman, where she's in the kitchen and she's preparing food. She's doing this serving, and because she loves Jesus. And so she says, and she approached Jesus and said, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Therefore tell her to help me." Martha is saying to Jesus, "Lord, do you not care that my sister left me?" So this is kind of understandable, because as we know, Jesus would have had probably his 12 disciples. So there's a lot of serving to do in the kitchen, but Mary is sitting with the disciples, listening to his teaching, and it's only Martha in the kitchen. So that's why it's understandable why she's complaining, Lord, I'm serving alone, tell Mary to help me. So normally, again, in the first century context with men and women and things like that, the expectation is for Jesus to tell Mary, Mary, your sister needs help. You should go help her. But as we see in verse 41, Jesus answered and said to her, Martha, Martha, you are worried and troubled about many things, but one thing is needed, and Mary has chosen the good part, which will not be taken away from her. So, what is this Mary has chosen the good part? Well, we know he's talking about Mary sitting at Jesus' feet, listening to his teaching, spending time with him directly like that. So this would have been very surprising to everyone because, like I said, having a woman disciple is a very strange, that never happens. A woman disciple is sitting at Jesus' feet. But also, when Martha complains, we would expect Jesus to tell her to go, but Jesus says, no, Mary has chosen the better part, the good part, and that will not be taken away. So here we see two things that are biblically good. There's Martha's serving. Martha had a good heart. She wanted to serve the Lord by providing food. I mean, Jesus would have been hungry. And then Mary, she had a desire to just sit at Jesus' feet and listen to his teaching, spending time with him like that. But here, Jesus prioritizes, so considers more important what Mary did. So we learn about the importance to Jesus, okay, of spending time with him, listening to his word, sitting at his feet. So this is not my opinion. This is not some pastor's opinion. This is what Jesus said. So as Christians, we do serve the Lord. The Bible clearly teaches that. But the first and most important thing is sitting at Jesus' feet, listening to him. So that is something that Jesus prioritizes. And so any Christian who knows the Lord, they will prioritize spending time with him in his word. And Jesus himself did this same kind of thing. If you go to chapter 6, Luke 6:12. So in Luke 6:12, now it came to pass in those days that he, Jesus, went out to the mountain to pray. That's spending time with God, the Father. And then after spending all night in prayer with the Father, verse 13, then when it was day, he called his disciples to himself, and from them he chose 12. So you see that spending time with the Father came first, and then ministry, serving. And then in places like 4:42, in Luke 4:42, now when it was day, Jesus departed and went to a deserted place, so alone place. And the crowd sought him and came to him and tried to keep him from leaving them. So even Jesus, the Son of God, when he was on the earth, he had to spend time with the Father. So if the Son of God had to spend time with the Father, then us, do we even compare with Jesus? How much more do we need our time with him? Jesus, during his 3.5 years of his ministry on earth, even when he was so busy, he had to withdraw many times and spend alone time with the Father. So only when we spend time with the Lord, only when we have time in the Bible, in prayer, our alone time with him, we're spiritually fed and we can be empowered to serve God. If a person doesn't spend time with God, any Christian, any pastor, anyone, if they don't spend time with God, you know that ministry is not only no power, but they can't really do anything for God. Some people today, there are a lot of people, whether Africa or all over the world, who are quote unquote ministers and pastors, but they don't really spend much time with God, and they use different strategies and methods to try to get people to feel like they got ministered to and things like that, but it's all empty. True effective ministry by any Christian, it's only from spending time with the Lord in His presence and getting empowered to do the work. So I hope we know what the priority is, what is most important. It's spending time with the Lord in His presence, and that was for all true saints, Old Testament or New Testament. Do you remember Moses in Exodus 34? At the end of Exodus 34, Moses goes into the tent face to face with God. Do you remember Enoch in Genesis chapter 5, who walked with God? So all throughout the Bible, all throughout history, when you know God, you want to spend time with Him, and you do spend time with Him. And including Jesus did that. And we know that eventually one day, all those who spent time with Jesus, who had a relationship with God, who walked with Him, will see Him face to face. So our time with Him is, Bible, prayer, and also something that can be very helpful is worship songs. If we have maybe a instrument like, like a cell phone or a laptop or any kind of, or if you have a guitar or anything, or just singing. If you don't have anything like that, just singing and worshiping God with Christian biblical songs. So Bible, prayer, like music, singing, worship, those are so essential for Christians. And what is amazing is in this Luke 10, Jesus wanted that with His disciples. So that means if you're a Christian, Jesus wants this time with you. Jesus would never push you away saying, I don't have time for you. We are the problem. Sometimes we don't want to spend time with Him, or we don't have time for Him, but He has time for us. James chapter 4, James says, draw near to God and He will draw near to you. So I hope we know that it's a privilege for us to spend time with the God of the universe. And may we have such blessed, wonderful times with Him in His presence as a daily thing. Lord, so thank You for this time of Your holy word that records such amazing things like this, Lord. Whether male or female disciple, what You prioritize, spending time with You at Your feet, listening to Your teachings, and getting fed spiritually. Just like we get hungry physically, how we need spiritual food. May You grant physical and spiritual nourishment as we spend time with You and as we continue our relationship with You, Lord. So thank You that we have that privilege of spending time in Your presence, and may we enjoy it in Your word, in prayer, and singing and worshiping You, and as we get fed spiritually and get empowered to do Your work and service. So thank You for this time in Jesus' name.